Coming to you live from Nairobi, Kenya. Welcome to Africa Focus, where we bring you news from across the continent right here on Switch TV Kenya. My name is Joel Church and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Start interacting with us on our social media platforms, Switch TV Kenya at Joel Church M on Twitter, and as well on Facebook, Switch TV Kenya and Joel Church. Sending an SMS via 111 free of for only 1 shillings. But first, here are stories making headlines. France President Emmanuel Macron's comment about Islam have strongly been criticized by African nations. French Foreign Minister rules out dialogue with jihadists, driving an 8-year of insurgency in the Sahel state. 100 people arraigned in court following violent weekend anti-government protests in the Angolan capital, Luanda. We begin with matters politics. Vandalized street lamps have been strewn across the roads in Conakry as violent unrest follows the announcement of the results of the presidential election. President Alpha Conde has won a highly controversial third term in office. Take a look.
Guinea's President Alpha Conde won a disputed national election, the country's electoral authority said Saturday, setting the stage for a controversial third term. The announcement followed days of violence in which 10 people were killed in clashes over Conde's re-elections bid in the West Africa nation of some 13 million people. Electoral Authority President Cabinet Cisse said provisional results showed that Conde, 82, had won 59.49% of the votes in the October 18th election. His main opponent, Cellou Dalein Diallo, at the forefront of protest against a third term for Conde, was credited with 33.5% of the vote. Criticizing the independence of the Electoral Authority, Diallo, 68, had on Monday declared himself victorious before the results were announced, which triggered confrontations between supporters and security forces. While Guinea's Independent National Electoral Commission declared the provisional tally, the Constitutional Court must still approve the result. It is expected to do so in about a week. With his win, Conde is set to govern for another 6 years and could potentially run for another 4th term after that. Amina Hussein, Switch TV.
Still in Guinea, the Camara family lost everything when their home was looted and burned down during the unrest, which left at least 27 people dead in a week, according to the Guinean opposition.
International envoys were due to meet Guinea's leading opposition politicians on Monday to discuss the country's disputed election, amid heightened security and sporadic gunfire in the capital. President Alpha Conde, 82, won a hotly contested October 18 election according to the official results announced Saturday, setting the stage for a controversial third term.
Pour la ville de Conakry et à l'intérieur du pays.
My older brother, who was there, went out with a child. He was shot out with a shotgun. Yes, he's slightly wounded.
Des infractions d'ordre criminel.
But his main opponent, Cellou Dalein Diallo, 68, disputes the results. He claimed victory last week, citing data his activists gathered at individual polling stations. Diallo's self-proclaimed victory led to a week of clashes between supporters and security forces across the West African nation, in which the government says around 10 people died. The opposition says 27 people were killed in the unrest.
Ce ne sont pas de simples délits qui se commettent.
We lost everything inside. We lost everything. Literally, we couldn't get anything out. Not even a pair of shoes. Everything was gone. They took everything out and burned the house down. So it's a pity. It's beyond us. We can't talk.
Des institutions de l'État.
A diplomatic delegation from the United Nations, African Union and the 15-nation Economic Community of West African States landed in Guinea on Sunday in the aftermath of the unrest.
De reconnaître que ce ne sont pas
young people from over there and those from here, between the partisans of the RPG and the UFDG, it's the two groups that clash.
population.
The envoys, which include ECOWAS Commission President Jean-Claude Cassiburo and the UN Special Representative to West Africa, Mohamed Ibn Jambas, are expected to meet several ministers.
Dans tous les pays du monde, vous avez au moins un agent.
The house you see here is my father's house. This is where they attacked us. They started to do crazy things. In every room, they took everything they needed. Everything. Then finally, they set up the house on fire.
Ça n'existe pas dans notre dispositif, c'est interdit, il n'y a aucun agent dans les muni d'une arme à feu.
An ECOWAS official in Conakry said they will hold a press conference later in the day. Diallo told the press that the envoys were also due to meet him. Police have kept Diallo blockaded inside his Conakry home for days. Anti-Conde protests were due to resume in the city on Monday morning, but few people had hit the streets by the afternoon.
Away from that, a small group of Libyans have burnt the French flag and portraits of President Emmanuel Macron in the capital Tripoli after he vowed his country will not give up cartoons depicting the Prophet Mohammed. The backlash against President Emmanuel Macron's comments on Islam intensified, with Turkish President Recep Tayyip again urging him to have mental checks and protest in Muslim-majority nations.
The French Foreign Ministry meanwhile called on authorities in affected countries to ensure the security of French citizens.
We are a nation whose leader is Mohammed. May God's prayers and peace be upon him, and we will not accept this nor be defeated, as Macron and France are the ones who will be defeated.
It describes some social media calls for protest as heinous, lamenting manipulation by radical minority and dubbing unnecessary boycotts of French good groundless. Speaking after teacher Samuel Paty was beheaded for showing caricatures of the Prophet Mohammed to pupils in a lesson on free speech earlier this month, Macron vowed France would not give up cartoons and said Paty was killed because Islamists want our future. Relations between Macron and Erdogan have become increasingly strained over geopolitical issues ranging from a Greek-Turkish maritime dispute to the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The European Union's top diplomat, Joseph Borrell, called the comments Erdogan made on Saturday unacceptable and urged Turkey to cease this dangerous spiral of confrontation. Anger at Macron has split over into the street in several Muslim-majority countries. Boycotts of French goods were underway in some nations, including by supermarkets in Qatar and Kuwait, with a call to spam French products in several other streets. Demonstrators held protests Sunday in region of war town, Syria still outside government control, and banned pictures of Macron, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights War Monitor. Around 70 people protested in the Libyan capital Tripoli. Some set fire to French flags and stamped on pictures of the French president. Malusa Meshak, Switch TV.
Still on the same matter, Tunisians have strongly criticized the recent remarks of French President Macron of France on Islamic separatism. This is on freedom of expression, allowing the caricature of the Prophet Mohammed, while calls to boycott French products are multiplying in the region.
Everything has limits, and your freedom ends when the freedom of others begins. It's not good. They can't insult the Prophet and say it's free speech. It's anarchy. It is a violation of values and mores.
We must not broach the question of religion. Religion is sacred, and there is no point in evoking the Prophet and Islam. Even the French will revolt against him.
We are against religious extremism and terrorism, and we are against anything that is not prescribed by religion. But what is happening now, the lack of respect for Muslims and their religious beliefs, is a red line that should not be crossed.
This is all political. All he wants is to have a more value in other people's eyes and cause collective disarray.
As well, Algerians are critical of Emmanuel Macron's comments about Islam, and some are calling for a boycott of French products. French President Macron has vowed to take the fight to Islamist radicals. This is after the October 16th beheading of a history teacher who had shown cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad to pupils in a class discussion on free speech. But a backlash against his comments has seen protests in Muslim-majority countries.
This Macron leads a ruthless campaign against Islam and Muslims. In every age, there is always someone to fight Islam. I ask the Arab and Muslim peoples, and in particular the Algerian people, to boycott all French products. We must also take to the streets tomorrow and in the days to come to express our anger and show our support to our Prophet Muhammad, who is our guide. They fight Muslims everywhere. We Algerians in Algeria are the first ones who should defend Prophet Muhammad. Why did all our countries react except Algeria? Here in Algeria we have a law that punishes those who insult the President of the Republic. But if you insult the President, you won't be worried and you won't risk any legal proceedings.
The Prophet remains our Prophet. Peace be upon him. And we, as Muslims, have responded to Macron as we could on social media, on Facebook. The Prophet remains above all. And concerning Macron, his intentions are clear.
Time to take a breather. Stay with us here on Africa Focus. Still to come. South African police arrest 5 suspects over the 2014 murder of national football captain Senzo Meyiwa. Welcome back to Africa Focus. My name is Joel Church and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Moving on to the corridors of justice, the trial of the 100 protesters arrested on October 24th following violent anti-government protests in the Angolan capital, Luanda, begins. Demonstrators are gathered in support outside the courtroom, which was too small for defendants.
At least 100 people were held following violent weekend anti-government protests in the Angolan capital, Luanda, a senior government official announced on Sunday. Anti-riot police fired tear gas and beat protesters to break up the demonstrations that attracted around 2,000 people. Protesters set up barricades along the roads using skips, boulders, tree trunks and burning tires.
So far, the defense lawyers are not aware of the crime. The accused have been arrested, and even in the provincial context, they will not give any information, and we are here without acknowledging the real crime that the demonstrators have committed.
Dozens of protesters, including journalists covering the demonstrations, were arrested. 103 people, including politicians from the largest opposition's United Party, were in detention.
There are signs, yes, of aggression. Many of them have t-shirts, clothes with blood on them, and it is a scenario that shows torture, and it is reprehensible in every way.
6 police officers were injured during the protests. A police motorcycle, a car, an ambulance and fire engine were damaged or burnt during the protests that occurred in a working-class neighborhood on the outskirts of the oceanside capital, Luanda.
Of course, we are able to talk to almost all the detainees. The first contingent is in the room, in the 3rd section. The second contingent is waiting for them to be tried in the 3rd section, so that they can all be tried in one section.
The demonstrations want to demand a new date for local government elections that were due this year but have been delayed due to the coronavirus pandemic. Civil society groups called the protests, which were also staged, to demand jobs and better living conditions. Nyakundi Kelvin, Africa Focus.
And here in Kenya, President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and the leader of opposition Raila Amolo Odinga gave their remarks as the government proposes a report on constitutional changes to resolve the cycles of election violence in the country. The Building Bridges initiative came about after Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga in 2018 stunned the nation by shaking hands and pledging to promote unity after a drawn-out 2017 election battle that left more than 90 people dead.
Excellency, we want to assure you that the Christian community, after this launch,
Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta on Tuesday pushed for constitutional changes to resolve the cycles of election violence in the country, a hot-button issue that has divided the political class. Kenyatta's plea came as head of a much-anticipated report on suggested reforms to be issued in the coming days after 2 years of public consultations that have seen leaders traverse the nation drumming up support for the process.
When we had finished here, we had a 3-tier structure of government: the local, the region, and the national. At Naivasha, the region was scrapped. We ended up now with the counties, the 2-tier, the national and the county, Your Excellency. So this is an issue that could be revisited at some other time. But right now we have this. But then, Your Excellency, when we sat together, we agreed that it was time to look at some of the issues ailing our country. Because in spite of having passed this constitution, which has been hailed all over the world as one of the most democratic constitutions, still we have a problem as a people. So what is it that is missing, that needs to be fixed, so that Kenyans can march on as a people who are proud?
The Building Bridges initiative came about after Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga in 2018 stunned the nation by shaking hands and pledging to promote unity after a drawn-out 2017 election battle left more than 90 people dead. Kenya, with its diverse population and large ethnic voting blocks, has long suffered politically motivated communal violence around election time, notably after a 2007 poll when over 1,100 people died.
Document that has been worked on and again, I repeat, for a period now of 2 years. And a document whose objective is really nothing more than to find what ails our country and hopefully give us a solution that will heal our country.
The BBI process and Kenyatta's reapproachment with Odinga has led to the public feud with Deputy President William Ruto, who has suggested the pair want to create a Prime Minister post for Kenyatta, who is not allowed to seek a third term in 2022.
Day, monumental hour, that Kenya picks a choice to be together. Kenya picks a choice to support the youth affirmatively. Kenya picks a choice to be affirmative about the women. Inclusivity in terms of their opinions, in terms of their views in leadership, inclusivity in terms of business. Kenya picks a choice to decide finally that devolution is the way to go.
The spat has called into question Kenyatta's promise to Ruto that he would back him in the next election, with Odinga emerging as a potential successor. The tensions were clear at the Mashujaa Day celebrations, with Odinga, who has no official position, praising the BBI process in a speech, while Ruto appeared to dismiss it. The exact date of the final report's release has not been made public, but government sources believe it is imminent. Amina Hussein, Switch TV.
Crossing borders, South African police have arrested 5 suspects over the 2014 murder of national football captain Senzo Meyiwa. The 27-year-old goalkeeper was shot dead at the house of his popstar girlfriend Kelly Kumalo on October 26, 2014. Until now, police have failed to find the killers, sparking accusations of incompetence. A newly appointed cold case unit took over the sluggish investigation in 2018, gathering evidence that allowed police to make a fast of arrest exactly 6 years after Meyiwa's murder.
Shot dead. His murder, which took place in Phosphorus in Aguruleni, brought the Meyiwa family immeasurable pain. It also sent shock waves across the country and the continent. After gathering sufficient intelligence information and evidence, I am happy to announce that there's been a breakthrough in the Senzo Mewa murder case. The first 5 suspects have been arrested between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. this morning in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. These arrests are as a result of multidisciplinary integrated approach to this investigation, which is working closely with the Director of Public Prosecution. The South African Police Service and the prosecution team are confident that we have a watertight case against all 5 suspects. At this point, we cannot reveal any further information as investigations are still ongoing and more arrests cannot be ruled out.
That's all on Africa Focus today, but keep the conversation going on our social media platforms, Switch TV Kenya at Joel Chacha M on Twitter, and as well on Facebook, Switch TV Kenya and Joel Chacha. Thanks to all who made this program a success, to my director, John Kasavuli, and my producer, Nyakundi Kelvin. My name is Joel Chacha, and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Until next time, do have yourself a great weekend.